should be, and I will do so, because the only person in the room probably who's both a conservationist and a businessman. It's not that I'm a businessman on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and conservationist on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I combine the two in what I do, which is what is now called a social enterprise. In the old days, when I started it 30 years ago, there were no such things. And there wasn't any terminology. And I used to try and figure out how you could set up an organization that was able to draw the strengths of business, of civil society, and indeed of public organizations generally, and to do so in a way that basically delivered results that were good for society, were good for the environment, were good for humanity, and above all good for the future, but on a scale that mattered. I set up this organization after having been in university. I taught actually the first course on the environment at Harvard University. Among my students were Al Gore and Benazir Bhutto and others. That was way back in '64. And after 4 or 5 years of doing that, I realized that academics was not for me. And I went home to India after my PhD. And I was the only person who could spell the word environment, so I got the job of setting up the Ministry of Environment in the government of India. Mrs. Gandhi wanted to go down in history as a great stateswoman. She wanted to go to the Stockholm Conference, where she did go, and she was the only non-host prime minister there, in addition to all of Parliament. And I had to prepare for that, and so I got pretty heavily involved with environmental issues, even though my PhD had been in nuclear physics. So after 5 years in government, I got seduced into joining the UN, and I became an international civil servant. And I realized that with all these years of experience in university, in government, in international agencies, the combinations of these things just wasn't working. There were more poor people every day, there were fewer trees every day, all over the world, and certainly in my own country. So again, another 5 years went by, and then I realized that my parents hadn't paid for an education for me to be having a great time while the rest of the world was going under. So I packed up my bags, went home, and started what was really probably the first social enterprise around sustainable development anywhere in the world. And it was called Development Alternatives. And I want to share this with you because it's very much to do with what we've been talking about here. I go back with WBCSD all the way to 1990. It wasn't called WBCSD, it was called BCSD. And with IUCN since 1975. So I have been a part of the process that brought these together, though obviously other people have done a hell of a lot more in the past. But in doing so, I came to the conclusion that if you want to do things on a large scale with a high impact, you have to design and redesign your business models. To design them in such a way that they actually deliver the goods and services and products that nature needs, that society needs. And unless you're going to achieve a better environmental outcome, and unless you're going to get more equity, unless you're going to reduce poverty, you're not really going to have sustainable development. And it is possible to design mechanisms like what I put together, which have the potential for doing this in a business-like way. So, Development Alternatives has been around now for 30 years. I left UNEP in 1982. And in those 30 years, we've been able to create maybe 3 million jobs. They're not on our payroll. We caused them to be created. But I've learned a great deal of lessons in that process. And one of them was that without innovation, an innovation of a totally different kind, the kind of innovation that is needed for the clients at the grassroots village, you're not going to be able to reduce poverty. So my organization organization was set up as a multinational corporation, if you like. It was very small in the beginning, but with a huge emphasis on developing new technologies for water, for cooking energy, for making houses, for creating jobs, basically. Handlooms, recycling, materials, often industrial waste, and a variety of other things. Over the years, my organization has developed 35, 40 major groups of innovative technologies which are in the market. They make money, they sell, and they make money from clients who earn less than $2 a day. That needs a different approach. It's not the kind of innovation that you get when you do it in the modern sector of even IT, but let alone IT, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, automobile industries, and all the other ones. So it's essentially important to find the solutions to conservation and to societal breakdown elsewhere from where we are today in the 21st century mainstream economy. I also learned that you can't fool around with Mother Nature for too long without getting into trouble. I am also at the moment not only president of IUCN but also president of the Club of Rome. And as you know, the DNA of the Club of Rome is limits to growth, now more commonly called planetary boundaries. These boundaries are constraining the ability of humanity to go on using more and more resources without having a rebound impact on their lives. So I'm very conscious in my businesses that resources are not only scarce, but they're very precious, and you've got to design your industries and your economies to be able to use them in a manner that actually respects those limits. So there are other lessons that you learn as a consequence of that, because if you're going to transport your cook stoves and your water pumps all over the country by manufacturing them in a centralized facility, you're using up unnecessarily large amounts of energy and materials and so on. And therefore, you have a completely different approach to decentralization. So as you go along, you find that your business models get turned upside down. My businesses, unlike the ones that many of us are used to, are small, locally, big, in essence, using a kind of a modified franchising approach, you can very easily achieve the combination of both. In essence, if you're going to have solutions to the issues of poverty and environment, then you really do have to address these issues in a totally different way. So what I would like really to say is that if we have a really productive relationship between the business sector and the conservation sector, as we do between WBCSD and IUCN, then it will have to be designed in such a way that both sectors are actually getting value addition. It's a win-win situation. And that win-win situation cannot be at a superficial level. It has to be also at a strategic and a long-term issue level. You can't really hope for this partnership of WBCSD and IUCN to last very long if all we talk is about fine-tuning this and cleaning up that, and how do you minimize the damage to a particular bird species or whatever else. We're talking about fundamental change. We're talking about business having to look for new kinds of energy sources if they're not going to destroy the Arctic, they're not going to destroy the water systems under the ground, and so on. So there are going to be what are now considered inconvenient, but quite possibly much more profitable changes in both business and in conservation. In conservation, we're going to also have to accept the fact that people have to live decent lives. And it's not, the world is not created just for preserving species, but for conserving all nature for all time. So there's going to have to be significant changes if that partnership is going to continue, which I hope it will, but it's not going to be at the superficial level of closing the leaks or tightening one's belts. It's going to be about fundamental change.
Well, thanks a lot, Ashok, for your, as usual, very straightforward, outspoken and insightful comments. We have come to the end of this think tank, and we started out by talking about this was the day where we would challenge each other in the conservation movement and in business. And I think we have had a lot of challenges put on the table during the day. And I think in my feelings from and reflections over the day, I think what Ashok was talking about, cooperation, a well-functioning cooperation between the conservation movement and business is there. And it can be further strengthened, and that's where the takeaways from today will further enhance and shape that cooperation. The question I have, and a number of you raised that, where are governments in this? And I was at the Rio Plus 20 in June, and my reflection in Rio was that when we had a Global Business Day with a very substantial participation and very many chief executives from leading companies in the room, where are governments? In my view, the leading part of the global business community is way ahead of governments in understanding these issues and in trying to address it and coming up with solutions. And I think here, when we look at the continued dialogue, we have to figure out a way to get the governments more at the table. That might not be always on a global level. It might be more on a national level. But I think the conservation movement and business will find common ways going forward. But together, we have to point the finger at governments and say, we need the right kind of policy framework. So let me quote, we said that the motto of today was changing pace. Let me quote a sentence from the opening part of this document. It says, sustainable business solutions can only create an impact at the speed and scale required by the transformation if the right mix of policy initiatives provide the right incentives to break the lock of business as usual. Business cannot create a sustainable world on its own. Business and the conservation movement cannot create a sustainable world together. We need a third party in the room here. We need governments to provide the right kind of supporting policy frameworks for this to happen. So with that, let me thank all of you for participation here today, your contributions, the great cooperation that I see between IUCN and the WBCSD, and having been part of setting this up a number of years ago, I'm very happy now as a former president to see that there is this platform going forward. There will be an opportunity, as you've heard before today, to meet with the panelists at 7 in the Business and Economy Building, where you can talk further about today's discussions. But in the meantime, there is a World Leaders Dialogue happening at 5 o'clock in the main hall, and it has the headline, Nature and Food Security. Can we feed the world sustainably? And Peter Bakker is going to be there. I think Mike Mack is also going to be in that dialogue. So that will be between 5 and 6:30. You can enjoy that dialogue, and then at 7 you are welcome to a happy hour and to talk more about today's themes. Thank you very much to all of you for today.
Right.